numbers, especially if they're very old. If you're doing an infant, you can lean a little more into the Payne's Gray when you're putting the dirty white on. It'll keep the white of the eye looking a little cleaner. It'll almost look blue. And you notice with brand newborns, the whites of their eyes are almost always real blue, and that's why. So then we take our pure white, we put a little highlight right down here at the bottom to really make that eye, the white of the eye sparkle. We're going to use, let's make this particular eye blue. For blue, there's a couple of ways you can go. You can use Payne's Gray, which is typically what I do. Almost always I use Payne's Gray. I'm not going to put as much as I would put on the pupil. I'm going to go with a little bit lighter. I just added a little tiny bit of oil to this to keep it lighter. And this makes a wonderful blue. Now, if your person has Steve McQueen blue eyes, you can take a little bit of cerulean blue and add to this. But with a real small portrait, it's really not necessary to do a whole lot with regard to the blue. The Payne's Gray works just beautiful. So I put Payne's Gray on there, and then remember our pupil is always Payne's Gray. So we're going to put Payne's Gray over the pupil, and I'm using a little more paint over that pupil. I'm going to keep that dark at the top because remember the eyelid casts a shadow on the eye. For a blue eye, the highlight is white, the secondary highlight, the one that comes through the eye. So our secondary highlight will start right over here. I'm just using a little bit of white on my brush. And put a little shine in. I'm going to darken up the blue over there on that other side a little bit more. I didn't get quite dark enough in here. There we go. The gleam of the eye is always white. And again, it goes at either 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock where the pupil and the iris come together. So I'll put it over here. 2 o'clock. Right there. The tear duct is a pretty color. That's a little bit bright. I'm going to soften that up just a pinch. Don't want it too bright in there. And then a little white for shine, which will also soften the color. Now, infants don't have a whole lot of eyelashes as a rule. They don't have a lot of hair, so they tend to not have a lot of lashes. As they get a little older and their hair starts growing in, then their lashes come in, and that's when we get all these little boys that have all these wonderful lashes that little girls don't have. And the reason little boys have them is because they're hairier people. They're a hairier species, so that's why they get those wonderful long eyelashes, and we wonder why the girls don't get them. Well, unless you want your girl to have hair on her face, you better be happy. Okay, so I'm putting a little bit of an eyelash line there. I'm going to reinforce the eyelid line with my dark skin tone again. Let's just soften that up just a pinch. Like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of a lash, but I'm going to be very conservative about it. I'm just going to take some of this that's in here, and I'm just going to pull it gently out this way. Okay? Be aware of what your person has. I mean, really look at their eye and see. So you don't end up doing something that really looks wrong. You don't want big, gaping, long lashes on a little infant. Okay. Now let me show you something. I'm staying on this eye for just a minute. If we want to make a green eye, you start with a blue eye. So we're going to use the same eye to create our green. You just make a blue eye, and now you take a little tiny bit of yellow. And you use yellow in here where your secondary highlight goes. Actually all around your iris. You can just use a little bit of yellow and you just pop that in there. And boom, you've got a green eye. I can put a little more secondary highlight in by adding a little more white. Okay, so a green eye starts out as a blue eye. Okay, and then our highlight is just yellow. So that's called a hooded eye. sometimes older people have that also. So in this situation, you wouldn't have any eyelid line at all. You would just leave it off, okay? So you've got a big eyelid here with nothing. Okay, white and Payne's Gray and burnt umber, dirty white, for the white of the eye, just like on every other eye. Put that color in there. Okay, pure white for the shine on the white of the eye. Okay, for the hazel eye, what a hazel eye is it's a variety of color. In other words, it's a little bit of everything. That's why you can't tell what color the eye is. It's kind of hazel. So it tends to be a blue eye, but then it has some green in it, and then it has a little brown in it, and so on and so forth. And of course, some hazel eyes are different. I have a niece who has hazel eyes, and they're very gold. They almost look like a golden brown color, so you would adjust for that. But for our purposes here, for the hazel eye, I'm going to start by making a blue eye by putting a little bit of Payne's Gray in here. Loosen that up with a little bit of medium. Now, I'm going to use my Payne's Gray for my pupil, just like always. Nice and black, very important. I have a little white on this pupil from where I applied the skin tone. If that happens to you, you have some white on there, be careful you don't pick it up and end up making this eye, making this pupil putting any white in it. In other words, don't make it smoky. You want to keep it nice and black, okay? Now, for the colored part of the eye, we basically did a blue eye. There was a little green in the brush, that's fine. Now I'm going to take a little bit of everything. And of course, you're going to be working on little small eyes, so it'll be a little easier for you. You take a little bit of orange, because that's the color in our brown eye. I'm just going to daub it around like that. I'm going to take a little bit of yellow, because that's the color in our green eye. I'm going to daub it around like that to keep my lighter colors toward the center. It doesn't matter when you're working on a great big scale. And you can use a little bit of brown, but keep it in the darker areas. But basically a hazel eye is just a little conglomeration of everything, okay? Now we do want to put a secondary highlight on that. So I'm going to just pick up a little white, and with whatever color is underneath here, I'm going to poke this white in here to highlight, so I get my secondary highlight. Again, pure white for the gleam, and the gleam either goes over here at 2 o'clock, or you can put it over here at 10 o'clock, where the pupil and the iris come together. The eyelash line is burnt umber again. Again, do a fuzzy caterpillar line. Like that. Now, one thing I want you to pay attention to is look at, especially if you're doing somebody who is Asian or has a little bit of a different, has this hooded eye. Just a second. I got a little bit of this burnt umber into the skin, and I want to get it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush, I'm going to set my brush up here, I'm going to wiggle it back and forth and push that burnt umber right back into itself. That way I don't get it all over my eye when I get rid of it. Little hint there. Okay. A lot of times Asian people have very straight lashes. And so what happens is instead of flipping up, which sometimes they do, but more often than not, instead of flipping up, they come down like this because their lashes are so straight. So what you need to do is look at your particular original, if you're doing somebody with a hooded eye, and pay real close attention to what's happening with regard to the lashes, okay? But that does frequently happen. This also is the same way a horse's eye is. Their lashes come down, they don't flip up. So if you're doing a painting of a horse and you're wondering why it looks like a girl, that's why you got the eyelashes flipping up. You need to pull them straight down over the eye. Okay, pretty color for the tear duct. Some tear ducts are larger than others. Pay attention to the size of yours. Don't overdo. You just want a little hint. Highlight in the tear duct. Remember, there's the shelf of the eye there. And if this person does have lower lashes that show, they would come this way. Okay? With regard to the eyebrow, now our baby didn't have an eyebrow to speak of, because babies, again, they don't have a lot of hair on their faces, so their eyebrows, if they exist at all, usually show up like a little shine right in that area. So you use a little white, put a little shine, and it indicates there's some shiny hair there, but you can't really see it. For the most part, you don't see much of a brow on babies. Don't put it in. If you don't see it, don't put it in there, because what happens is we try to create a brow, and it ends up that our little infant that's supposed to be 4 days old now looks like he's 5. So it's real important that you are mindful of whether or not you actually are seeing a brow. Don't do what you think you see. Do what you actually see when it comes to painting, okay? Okay, these brows, person has black hair because they would be Asian, but I'm not going to use black on the face. I'm going to use burnt umber. Again, pay attention to the direction that the hair goes. Most Asian people have straight, very straight hair, so that includes their brows too. The hair would be fairly straight. Okay. If the hair is thicker in one area, you just make it a little darker there. All right, let's talk a little bit about this other eye. I did it for the purposes of talking to you about eye color more than anything. When people are doing paintings of someone they know, and let's say they're painting Grandpa, and Grandpa's got a big smile on his face, and he's got a lot of wrinkles, and he's squinting, they can't get past the idea that Grandpa had light blue eyes, even though he's in heavy shadow and you're not seeing the light blue eyes. So if you are painting a person whose eyes are real squinted like this, and in the photograph they look black or they look very, very dark, what you want to do is you want to paint what you see, okay? Because if Grandpa is squinting and he's got a lot of light hitting his face and he's got a lot of shadow hitting his eyes, the reality is that Grandpa's eyes are not blue when he's in the sunlight with a lot of light hitting his face and a lot of shadow on his eyes. The reality is Grandpa's eyes are a different color because you can't see the blue. What it takes to make color is light. In other words, you'll notice as the evening wears on and things get darker outside, you get more of a gray to the trees, everything. At nighttime, you look outside, the trees are black, there's shades of gray. But unless you have a light shining on something, you don't see the color. Well, it's the same thing with the eye in a painting. If you don't have any light shining on that eye, the color isn't going to show up. So try to get away from the concept of, if Grandpa's got blue eyes, I have to make him light blue even if he's in a heavy shadow, because it's just not going to look real. Okay, a lot of people try to do that and it's not right. I would never do that. I would not want to do it wrong. And if this was my Grandpa, his eyes would not look blue in this heavy shadow. They would look just very dark. So if that's how they look, then that's what we make them. Nice dark eye. Most of the time, and the white of the eye is also going to be very dark. It's going to be very gray, just like that. You could put a little fleck of a highlight in right at the bottom if you needed to. If there's any light showing at all, which there probably isn't, you might want to put a little gleam, but be real conservative. Don't make it as bright as you normally would, because again, that eye is in the heavy shadow. And then when you build your wrinkles in around that, using your dark skin color, you build these little wrinkles in here around the eye. And you've got all your shadow in here, and it's going to look more realistic than if you try to make Steve McQueen blue eyes here on this person who's standing in the strong sunlight and has all this light hitting his face, and his eyes are in a heavy shadow. Okay? Eyebrows, if there's a lot of light hitting the face, the eyebrow would be darker at the bottom because the eyebrow casts a shadow on itself. And then maybe toward the top, but especially if this is an older person, the eyebrow would be gray, more gray. So your light goes on the top. And then maybe it casts a little bit of white for bright highlight on the eyebrow hair. Okay. Really try to train yourself to do what you actually see, not what you wish you see or not what you think you see. A person with this kind of a squinty eye would not be showing any eyelash. Now you can put a nice strong eyelash line on, but I would not recommend putting a strong eyelash on this eye. Because an older person like this, you're not going to see it with them squinting like this. Okay? That should do it for our eyes. Hopefully you'll have good luck.